Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Charles.
I'm Seth.
I'm Jenna.
And we've got a couple of esteemed guests with us this week for our 100th episode. I don't know why I did this. But yay, us, 100 episodes. We can effectively go into syndication now, right? Because we've reached 100 episodes.
I mean, just because we say it anymore, that makes it true, right?
I think
Set
so.
it on a public platform, so it must be true.
Right. So this week, to help us celebrate our 100th episode, we've got Stu Burns, who's been on a number of times, especially around October when we do our Halloween shows, because he's kind of an expert on vampire folklore and sort of strange things like that, Sasquatch, whatever, right? Right, Stu? And then we've got Benito on. Benito's been on what's that?
And Nebraska tourism.
Nebraska tourism, right? And we've got Benito on. He's runs one of the partner podcasts for the Synergy Nation Network, Go RPGs. And he also happens to be a dungeon master for Seth and Linda and I.
Yeah.
In this amazing campaign we're in right now, but it may be coming to an end soon from what I hear, because we're entering the terminal phase of the dungeon.
And let's not forget also independent filmmaker, even though COVID has put some speed bumps in that, he's definitely had his own, film production and special effects, wetworks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
He's a bit of a local celebrity. I remember I was having lunch with him, and our waiter's like, makes a pass again. He's like, "Hey, dude, love your work."
That's right.
Nice.
What was the book that you wrote again that's really big, kind of in the field?
Yeah, it's called The Special Effects Guide to Real Wounds, Human Wounds and Injuries. It's 40 miles long. I don't know what I was thinking, but
You made sure it pinged all the search engines.
Special, yeah, you're right. Special effects, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's awesome. So Benito and Seth as well are kind of huge into 3D printing. Benito not only does it for a hobby, but also professionally.
Really, none of this would have happened, I don't think, for the most part, without Seth.
Really? Because Seth got you into 3D printing?
Yes, he did.
Really?
Seth bought one, and I was super excited, and then...
So Seth's kind of like a 3D
I
pusher.
guess I needed one.
I got my first printer for my birthday last year, mid-pandemic, because...
Thanks, Katie.
Because I was...
Because Katie wanted him out of her hair.
Yeah. I got into mini painting because I couldn't do any of my normal hobbies, really. I go out to coffee shops to write, so that was a whole year with no writing and zero creativity, so I started painting minis. And then I was like, hey, I can start looking at the prices of things and like how expensive it was to print a mini. I was like, well, I could print a dozen minis for the cost of buying just one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
And you're up to what now? Three.
I've got 3 3D printers now. I have a small resin, a medium-sized resin, which resin is what I use to print minis on because it's a high detail. It's really high detail. I don't know if you can see, if you've got a good view on the camera, but I'm holding up one of these minis.
If you put your hand behind it so the camera has something to focus on, it usually works a little better. There we go.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, started printing and painting these guys. So that's here's one that I painted
That's
kind of
amazing.
recently.
Wow. That's a pretty
Awesome.
serious sorcerer.
Yeah.
But
You make me want to get paints.
you can also print things like this on my Medium one, which for podcast listeners, I am holding up a humongous frost giant.
Yeah. How big is that? That looks like that's probably at least 10 inches tall.
Well, here's in comparison, here's the other mini that I was showing you.
Wow.
So
Now that frost giant, did you print that all in one, or is it different pieces that you assembled together?
he came in, or I think this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces.
Wow.
Okay.
Total.
So then you glue them together.
Yep, you just glue them together. What you're seeing is this guy has already been primed. He's ready to paint, and he's actually hopefully going to be one of my next projects.
Nice.
Just because he's going to look rad, but it's going to take forever.
Yeah. Well, now, Benito, what kind of things are you printing with your 3D printer?
Well, I'll share some pictures here in just a second. I was actually bringing some up. I didn't know we were doing show and tell. So.
Oh, that's
Let me
okay.
bring-
Well, I'll tell you what, we can keep going with Seth if he's got
Yeah,
more
let me-
stuff to
I'll
show
bring
while
up
you
a
get
couple.
ready.
Sure.
Something like I was gonna just ask for both of you that, as you're showing and telling us, it's been really cool for the journey of Galactic Driftwood, all the different avenues of expressing our hobbies and interest in sci-fi, horror, things like that. Because having this podcast has gotten us to talk to a lot of interesting people. So, I mean, and just now Benito's saying how getting to meet Seth and getting inspired to get into this. My first panel with you all.
Aw.
It's very cool, and to see the technology, how far even in just the last couple of years cons have come.
In just the last few months, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So like, where do you think this is all going? Do you think we're going to start seeing like nerds become their own artisan group again?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, we've already got people or a whole community of costuming who are doing these amazing cosplays and stuff that make the stuff you see in Hollywood look tame sometimes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, if you look at Bill Hedges, for example, who's another guy that we kind of met through the podcasting stuff up in Lyons, Nebraska, where he's using, commonly available software tools now to create his own web serial, Cosmic Cat. And he builds all of these props himself, does all the amazing special effects work afterwards. And it's just incredible every time I see what he's doing. It's all of these technologies now that are becoming more and more affordable to the common man, to make people be able to produce their own, show their own creative side and produce whatever it is that their passions have really inspired them to do. So I think it's really cool, whether it's, software-based stuff and you're working on maybe games, or you're, trying to tell a story through some sort of YouTube series, or even, like us doing podcasting. We use Zoom for that, which prior to the pandemic, we were kind of doing everything in person. And then when the pandemic came, we had to find a way to get together to continue doing this. And we switched to Zoom. And now it's just a great, convenient way for us to be able to get together and do this. And it cuts down on commute time. And sure, it's fun to still get together in person, and we'll be doing some more of that, I think, now that everybody's getting into their booster shots for the pandemic.
Yeah,
and it's more widely available, right? So we can get together and do some live after dark stuff, which I think will be fun. But 3D printing is another example. All kinds of stuff like that. So Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks for buying me some time.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
You
no
did a good
problem.
job.
All right, so you've got some stuff to
Funny.
show us, I think, huh?
Yeah, just a couple of things, nothing crazy, but just
Okay.
sort of the detail level is amazing. Let me see here. All right, I'm gonna try to share my screen. You know what? It's been so long since I've even been on here. Let's see.
We can buy you some more Tam if you want.
Should be a share screen
Benito,
button in
could
the
you
bottom.
tell us a little bit about your career now? Because you definitely have had some adjustments to what you do professionally the last couple of months, and it sounds like it's put you in a place to more closely follow your passions.
Yeah, very strangely enough. So I quit my regular job for whatever reason. Well, I know why, but it's just it's really strange. You know, there's so many articles and stories on quitting, people quitting their jobs and relating that to the pandemic, and having the time away from work and getting to do the things that I like to do and the things that made me feel good and happy and not, you know, you don't have to go to work every day for 9 hours every day and work for
Be
someone
super
else.
stressed.
Yeah, you start doing things for yourself and you start enjoying that, and you're like,
Yeah.
what have I been doing all of these years? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the pandemic opened my eyes to, you know, I'm 51 years old, so I don't have that much time left. Like, do I really want, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't have that much time,
Yeah.
but I
I mean,
don't,
it
do
depends
I
on
want
how
to
hard
keep,
you party, Benito.
No, honestly,
do I
when
want to
you-
keep, do I want to keep working every day for 9 hours, you know,
Right.
5 days a
Right.
week?
When you hit 50, it makes you consider that.
Yeah, so I was like, there's got to
Yeah.
be a job out there somewhere. I mean, I see other people having fun jobs and doing what they want to do, and so yeah, so I just had posted that I had quit my job, and somebody had reached out to me, Mike Torres, who owns a company here, and he was super excited about 3D printing. He had just bought 8 giant filament printers and had no clue how to run one, not at all. He has another guy now down there that works, just one more guy. His name's Ben also, but no clue how to run one. I don't know how to run a filament printer at all, but I think just the fact that I had done some resin printing and posted some pictures, I think was just enough to him to reach out to maybe come work down there.
Huh.
And then that turned into projection mapping. I didn't have a clue how to do projection mapping. I think it's awesome when I see it, but how to do it, I didn't have a clue. I had to learn how to do that too.
So
But
what
it's
is
all super
projection?
fun, creative.
What is projection mapping?
Well, the biggest example is the castle at Disneyland.
Okay.
They have a whole show where they project onto the castle all of these great images, and things are changing and moving, and
Mhm.
they're mapped exactly to the shape of the castle. On a smaller level, I think you see a lot of haunted houses, or not haunted houses, residences where people shoot with a projector on their house, where
Okay.
looks like
Oh,
somebody's in
right.
the window, or somebody crawls out of a window and crawls across the house and crawls into another window. And
Ah.
Wow.
So would an
Good.
example be like, Benito, when you see like a smooth oval form in a picture portrait and they project like a scary
face
face
on
from the
it.
haunted house?
yeah, it's so
to-
awesome, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exact same thing. So it's just learning that software. And I've been there since middle of September, and we got a pretty good grasp on projection mapping now. The printers that we have, this commercial grade, they're not just plug and play. It doesn't just come in a few pieces and you plug everything together and hit start and it prints. There's so many moving parts to these.
Huh.
We just had the people who built the printers. They were there. The software programmer who writes all the code to tell the printer what to do was there. And we've been trying to tune all eight machines. It's to the point, these machines have belts that run, back and forth, up and down, side to side, and the thing's moving all the time. And these things, they have belts that run on pulleys. Well, those belts are tuned with the same like little software, or the same little program. If you're tuning a guitar, it has to hit a certain pitch.
Mm.
So if you twang it with your finger, the belt, you tune it until it comes into the right pitch.
Really?
Wow.
And then and there's like, I don't know, there's like 8 or 10 belts on these things, and they all have to come in certain code, and it's crazy. It's so above anything that I would ever have any clue about. But
So do
luckily
these
professionals
printers
there.
then, are they going to require sort of ongoing maintenance like you would tuning a piano, for example?
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Wow.
So I think we're going to end up bringing in the actual software designer, because he also 3D prints all of the parts for them. Yeah, there you go. 3D prints all of the parts for the machine also. And so he's just going to be a huge asset to have on retainer. I think he'll probably be our full-time maintenance man.
So what
So
is
for
the
those-
creative work that you're doing specifically? Like, what are you printing that is now all of a sudden this new career that people could keep an eye out for? I know it's not a common job, but it's
Right.
the fact that there could be more positions like this might be really interesting to some folks.
Sure. So our printers, we're going to bring in resin printers also. We're going to get these tuned first and get them up and running, and then we'll move into resin printing. But the filament printer, which is the printer that melts the plastics on a giant spool, and it's just a thin
Bead.
what do I want to say? Yeah, it comes in as a what am I trying to say, Seth? The filament's a thin.
I could just go get a thing of it.
That might be
It's like
easy.
it's like in a
Anyway.
spool, right? And it's just a thin filament of a
Yeah,
line
it's just
of
right. Just a
plastic.
filament wire of different, and there's hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of the filament material that you can get. Depends on what you're going to print. But in our particular case, we're going to print. We can print anything. The goal is to print. We do a ton of work for zoos around the United States, and the idea is that they used to bring in sculptors to sculpt the different animals. So if you're going to a meerkat exhibit, before you walk in, if the signage has meerkats on it, or maybe there's a display of some rocks out front of the actual building that you're about to go in to view the meerkats, if those have meerkats on them. So they used to bring people in who would hand sculpt those and then mold them, pour them, paint them, do the whole thing. Now, if we use the right filament or the right, oh, here we go. There you go. That's what it looks like.
Or this.
Mhm.
There you go. So if you use the right material, you can get a almost perfectly smooth surface. So we go in, we find an STL file of a meerkat, which is just a digital file that the printer can read, or the software can read that sends it. It's crazy, but if I have just a stationary animal, say it's a dog, this is my dog. If it's a dog, if I get a stationary STL file, I'm just stuck with what it is. But with the software we have, we can go inside of that digital model, and then I can build a skeleton inside of it and put all the joints in the correct places. So then the software allows me to grab its foot, and I can move its foot into position, or its leg or its arm based on the hinges I put in, or the pivot points. And then so I can pose it in different positions. So I can take one meerkat STL digital file, make 5 or 6 different ones in different poses. We print them, and based on what we coat them with to paint them in post, then they can just go right on the signage and sit outside for years and be fine in the elements.
Huh.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So what this is PLA, polylactic acid. And it turns out this is a bioplastic. And the one I have right now is actually a wooden PLA to print with, which turns out printed things that you can actually stain, and they turn out looking like wood.
Yeah, the technology is crazy. It's
So,
amazing.
Yeah, I've got this bowl that I've made
that's cool.
for my wife that I'm
for-
going to later sand down and stain, and it should look like natural wood.
Wow.
Huh.
All right, so let me bring up a couple of prints here. So just to show you the detail on some things, this is at 209 that I'm working on now, and this is how many pieces that had to be printed in. Can you see? Are you guys seeing this?
Not
We
yet.
only see the file list.
Yeah, we see the browser window.
Oh my
Maybe
God.
share to the
It says
screen
you are.
and
It says you are screen sharing.
Yeah.
I
think
think you
you're-
selected the specific browser window. If you share again and show the whole screen, you should be good to go.
Yeah, we're just seeing your Windows Explorer
couple passwords.
Your browser history.
Let me try it again. So
Some
share
X-rated
Yikes.
photos.
I have this. I click on this and I hit
You
share.
should see the picture that you've opened or just the monitor. Choose the screen versus just a specific window.
Hold on. I've done this a million times. I don't know why we're having trouble. You're still not seeing this?
Now we
Oh,
see
no,
it.
I do.
Holy
There we go.
Okay.
So you're saying, Bill, you can now give Bill the pieces to build his robot.
There you go.
Right.
Awesome.
So they look pretty good here, but there's a lot of posts in certain cases. If you look on here, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You either get dimples or you get pimples.
Oh,
And-
wow.
These here are pimples that have to be sanded down smooth. The material is very easy to work with, though. It sands super easy. It
Huh.
fills in really easy. Here's examples of pimples here.
Oh, wow.
But again, it's really just a quick sand. But look
And
how
is
small
this
some of these
something
parts are.
that you printed?
Right,
Yeah. And what's this for?
just for fun.
Oh, okay.
If you have a printer, you get antsy when it's just sitting there not running.
Uh-huh.
But if you look at some of these tiny prints, so these are printed with resin, which is a liquid. I'm just going to dumb it way down. It's basically a liquid acrylic, a liquid plastic that cures by ultraviolet light. And so it's printed in layers. And so the screen underneath shines a light up through this plastic or through this material, this liquid material. And it's the very specific shape. So a platform comes down and it goes down through the liquid and it sits against this bottom where the ultraviolet light is. It shines up through a clear glass plate. And so a certain shape is shot up through that glass. And depending upon how the shape is, that's the very first thing it prints. So basically, if you're just going to print a rod, it would print a flat circle and the plate would come down. It would run for 3 seconds. It would set that resin. The plate would come up a tiny bit, go back down, but stop where that resin had set up, print another circle, and it just keeps doing this. And it goes print, 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 print. And so it's made out of, several layers that are just activated by ultraviolet light.
And for those that aren't aware, then why would someone choose a resin printer over a filament printer?
Seth, you want to answer that? I'll give you that. I'm going to pull up some more stuff. I'll give you
Okay.
the
Yeah,
chance.
there's. Oh goodness. Kitten knocking things off of my desk. Sorry. All right, so they're both types have their pluses and minuses. The big advantage of an FDM, a filament printer, over a resin printer is the build volume, in that you can build much bigger things.
Much bigger.
Yeah, so this
Huge.
I couldn't print this on even my medium-sized printer at all. Also, things that you print in the FDM, the materials that you use, the filament, tends to be a whole lot more sturdy than resin does. So you can make functional parts with an FDM printer, stuff that you can wear, can drop, you could use in any number of useful applications, like printing parts that could go on a car.
Yep.
You
Okay.
can do that.
Or stuff for cosplay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. A lot of cosplayers use the
They do.
FDM 3D printers to make their props and whatnot. That's not as feasible on resin printers, that they specialize in doing smaller things with finer detail. So they really shine when it comes to making minis or things where the detail is super important. The downside to the resin is the small print area. I mean, you can get much larger ones, but as you get in, the larger you get, the much more expensive you get.
Right. So the last job I came from, we had an expensive resin printer with a big build plate. It was about this big. And that was $16,000, but you could build
Wow.
something that was this big. But but that's not a hobbyist isn't going to buy that particular.
Right.
I would never spend that much on a resin.
Yeah. The
Manufacturer of some
other
sort.
downside to resin is that it is far more difficult to work with in that you have a lot more. The resin itself is highly toxic, so you have to be very careful with handling it and cleaning everything that you print off of it.
So this is a filament picture here.
Yeah. Filament
really cool.
is the PLA is not only a bioplastic, but you can also put it into industrial composting, and it's recyclable. Just goes back to soil.
So let me show you just real quick. I know you guys are probably glossing over, but let me show you just real quick here the amount of detail that you can get with resin versus the filament here. We'll see if I can do this right because I'm not sure that I can because I keep screwing up. Okay. Stop sharing. Let me try this again. How am I struggling so much, you guys?
It's
Well,
all
Right,
right.
it's
You
been
had
a while
large
since you've
campaign
used
tonight.
Zoom.
Right?
Wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Oh, yeah.
you're seeing. So
seeing-
this is a resin printer,
That's amazing.
and this piece came I think in 17 pieces.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, if you can put that back up, Benito.
Well, I'll try.
Actually, you can
Let me
see.
see.
You could barely. You can, if you look really close, like on the shoulder plate, you can barely make out the layer lines on that.
Mhm.
So the layer lines, or the layer height, or we call them layer lines on a finished print. The layer height on a resin piece is around 0.02 to 0.05 millimeters at most. The layer height on an FDM print is usually around 0.2 to 0.4 millimeters.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, even though they're very small,
Still noticeable.
they're noticeable, but they're way less noticeable on an FDM. You might be able to make out some of the layer lines just on this.
Benito, that picture though you're showing us of the armored figure is just epic.
It's
Right.
so
So
clear.
look at, let me show you something else to this. So when he was showing pictures of the different sizes, let me see. Why am I struggling to share today? It feels so weird. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
you can print a mini this small, which is
Whoa.
sort of the regular size that you play with, which is what, an inch? Is it an inch and a little bit of change, Seth? Like an inch and an eighth, maybe?
Yeah.
So, and you get, this picture's a little blurry because of the phone, but the detail is incredible on here. He has straps that have buckles, and you can see the buckle mechanism and the pin that goes through the holes for the buckle. And then you can turn around and, you know, I could print this file of this giant
Holy
Death Knight.
cow.
I could print him as small as the little guy, or I could take the little guy in the software, stretch him out, pull him out, and print him as big as the big guy. And the detail's the same. It doesn't change. So, yeah, it's amazing. Like, look at all this.
That is amazing. Jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. He's green on the bottom. If you look down from the top, he's black. If you look up from the bottom, he's green. I'm going to do like an underglow painting, so it looks like he's standing on green.
That's cool.
Toxic
Oh.
stuff.
Yeah, I guess it. So if you're trying to choose between FDM and SLA, which is resin, filament versus resin, kind of consider your needs. If you're primarily looking at printing minis, an SLA might be good for you. But if you don't have a specific place to put that one, that's going to be a problem because you usually want to keep it out of your living area just because the resin is so bad and you don't want it getting on things.
Yep, there you go.
The FDM, is great if you're primarily interested in making stuff like cosplay accessories or larger functional things. But you can still actually print out minis and stuff like that on an FDM. You're just going to lose some of those details. but you can still turn out perfectly functional minis once you have it dialed in well enough.
Mhm.
Now, is there a speed difference in printing from one to the other?
Yes. So that's another advantage of the resin printers, is that you could fill up your entire plate with a dozen minis. However much you can cram on a plate, you can print all at once, and it doesn't affect the printing time. What affects the printing time for a resin printer is basically how tall it is, how many layers it has to do. An FDM printer, on the other hand, the number of objects on the plate and the height of the plate all play in, because the resin does an entire layer all at once, just of everything. That screen just lights up, solidifies an entire layer. The FDM just has that one moving head that has to go and draw each layer on each object. So the bigger the object, like in X and Y terms and in Z terms, that all plays into how long something's going to print.
Mhm.
And also the more material it has to put down will affect how long it takes to print. So if you've got something that's like a plate that has just a long flat surface of something that needs to be printing, that's going to take a ton of time to print. Whereas if it's just like building up a couple thin walls, that goes really, really quick.
Okay.
So,
Did we lose you guys?
Stu, as someone who sees a lot of, creative nerd energy at the cons and the writing side, and Benito, I know you're a big fan of writing too, and but you're seeing more of the craft and printing and things like that. With COVID, I mean, you've already spoken about this expanding and getting people to really reevaluate how they're spending their time, whether it's at work or something personal. Like, how much would you say it has grown for people to really invest in the things that they love when we do get together at the cons now in communities? Has it just exploded?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think everybody got very creative when we had that downtime. I mean, just trying to buy computer parts is next to impossible without spending a bazillion dollars, because people, graphics cards and whatnot, taken to the streaming and Twitch and gaming and all those
Crypto
things.
mining.
Yeah. and then exactly, probably part of the reason I got this second bigger printer. I have a smaller one that I started out with. The build plate was about this big, and now my new one is whatever this big. But I think that had a lot to do probably with COVID too, is you're looking for something to do, and so that just sort of fed into buying a bigger printer that I could do more things with. And so yeah, it's a huge explosion based on COVID and downtime and looking at being creative and building things.
Yeah,
and it's a side hustle. It's a side business.
Right.
Yeah,
Easily.
and to speak to Jenna's point, I think what COVID really did was it really accelerated a lot of learning curves for people. There are a lot of things that you'd say like, well, I could do this, but I'll just keep doing it the way I've been doing it. I could do this, but I'll just keep doing it the way I've been doing it. And when we had the pandemic, especially the early months of the pandemic, when we were all really sheltering in place, people realized, okay, the way I've been doing it just flat out doesn't exist anymore. I've got to find a different way to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And so it really accelerated your learning curve in terms of getting different types of social media, getting the different, type of material work, different habits of how to interact and so forth. And now that we're ostensibly coming out of the pandemic, and things are getting slowly easing back to normal, a lot of people are saying, well, hold on, I like these skills. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff I don't want to give up about this new life that I've made for myself. Because when in National Novel Writing Month, for example, we would have these in-person get-togethers where we'd socialize and we talk about our work and so on and so forth. And now, and when we tried to go online, it was a little awkward because we had a Discord server get up and didn't have a lot of traction. People just kind of message and so forth. This year, since we've had that much more experience at this, now the Discord server is much more active, much more, because people have those skills and have those aptitudes. and they're ready to do that. And I think it's going to be tough to try to get them back to meeting in person, frankly. I mean, because if you think about what goes into an in-person meetup, you've got, say an average of a 15, 20-minute commute to someplace, and then a 15, 20-minute commute back. That's 40 minutes where you could be spending doing something you really like instead of sitting in your car.
Well, and also the expense or the monetary, value, the money you've put into that technology, it'd be hard to just walk away and go back to doing it in person when I have all this tech right here that I've invested time to learn how to run, bought, the physical part of it, and then to just not use it anymore doesn't make sense either. I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or tech and distance. I mean, say some of your best friends through the pandemic were, hundreds of miles away. Mm-hmm. People who you normally would be losing track of. I mean, we've been moving toward that over the last 15 years through social media, but I think COVID just gave it a huge shot in the arm when people say, okay, do I want to go back to the trouble of making friends who I physically interact with, or I have all these very valuable relationships I've built up in the last year and a half. Do I value that more? I think a lot of people are saying, option B. No, I value that more. I don't want to leave my online friends. And there are some folks who say, oh my goodness, this is a great tragedy for humanity. Maybe it's not. You're able to actually cultivate a broader and more meaningful social network through using the technology, through using the skills that we learned during the pandemic. Yeah.
Do you think that people have maybe holdouts from learning new technology? This has shown them, hey, I can learn something new. I can learn a new skill. I can figure something out on my own. I can more easily get comfortable with tech. Do you think it's maybe brought a lot of the older generation up to speed with the younger generation in terms of, hell, fuck yeah, I can learn this, or I can do this. Like, it's given confidence.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's two things at play there. One was the necessity of having to learn that stuff to stay in contact. People had to learn things like Zoom, for example, or online meetings. But the other thing playing into it, I think, was the fact that because you weren't going out to eat and going out to meet people all the time, and you were more sheltered at home, you had more time to spend learning something new. And if you had something that had always been in the back of your mind, like, well, I'd like to do this, but I just don't have the time. Now, all of a sudden, you find yourself with a lot of time on your hands, and you're like, well, shit, I think I'll just sit down and spend some time learning this new technology. And so I think that's helped people quite a bit jump into stuff that they've always wanted to do.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think it goes beyond generations. It's in different sectors of society. I mean, there are people who I never would have got on Discord before. I mean, because I didn't see the point of it. Now I see how healthy this community that we've got going is. I'm like, oh heck yeah.
Right.
I agree 100%. I had no cause or no reason to ever be on Discord ever. I think I only had the app because we would do script read throughs once or twice a year, maybe. The only reason I had it. And now I'm on it all the time, just constantly. It's just such a great way to reach out to communities, especially the 3D printing community.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we started, Seth kind of introduced us to Discord just for our podcasting stuff when we started doing more things online. And, it's amazing. You can have, different quote channels, which are basically different rooms you can go into to talk about different subjects. And so we've kind of separated it. So we have different rooms for our different shows where you can go in and start planning future events and stuff. And it's just been kind of a game changer for us as far as planning stuff. And, whereas, before we might have gotten together over lunch and kind of just shot some ideas around. And then, several days later, you're thinking, now, what the heck were we talking about at lunch that we're going to do? But now you've got it right there documented. You can just go back and pull it up real quick and you're right back to where you were. So yeah, it's been amazing. Well, let me ask you guys, because we're starting to get close to the end of our time here. We're coming up on the holidays and people might be thinking about asking Santa they want to get a 3D printer.
The answer is no, Bill.
No, I said I'm going to ask Santa.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so if that's the case, what would you recommend for a starting printer for folks and a starting technology, whether, SLA or the resin or whatever?
And app. like maybe a free or low cost app to help work with those printers?
Yeah, or where they get their STL files.
I think you guys need to give them a little idea of what you would use it for. That's probably going to
Yeah.
make the difference of what they recommend.
Well, let's say, yeah, they're going to use it for Dungeons and Dragons, and maybe they want to print some characters, for example, or alternatively, maybe for something for cosplay. Maybe they want to build
Sure.
some props for cosplay.
Yeah, refrigerator magnets to give away as gifts or picture
Yes.
frames.
No, there you go.
I
Right.
mean, there's just a million things you can do.
Or maybe 3D printed guns to defend themselves. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, okay. Oh, yeah, Jenna just.
Let's not
Benito.
go there.
Yeah,
You mind if I take first shot?
you take the first shot, and then I definitely have an answer for my end. So go ahead.
All right. So for D&D, if you're looking at just printing minis, I recommend starting with an Elegoo. There are plenty of entry-level printers, and it kind of depends on your budget, but
That's
Elegoo is a great kind of budget starter printer. They've got the Elegoo 2 Pro and the Elegoo Mars and the Mars 2. They're both great entry level, and you can get them both, I think, for under $200.
Right.
Is that an example there, Benito, of something printed on an LED?
Yeah, exactly what he's talking about for D&D minis.
Okay.
Like I needed a bartender, so I printed a bartender for a game. So
Huh.
Yeah. So
Alright.
if you're more interested for D&D in printing buildings and landscapes and dungeon tiles, an FDM is going to serve you better. For which there are also several very good entry levels. The Creality Ender Pro 3, I believe, is kind of the community favorite just because so many people have them and there is so much support for that. You can dial that one down really well to make very usable minis, but you can also use it to make landscape and all of the props that you were maybe hoping to make. It's got a decent build volume, and it's, like I said, very well supported in the community.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
My
right.
turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your turn.
So my turn is, I don't know anything about filament printers yet, so I don't necessarily have, other than I know we've had ours since August and they still barely print. Our filaments barely work. I don't know if it's because if you spend more money, you have more technology and more software and more things to go wrong, but I'm not opposed to it. Seth is having so much fun with his, and he seems to have it dialed in instantly. Almost not. I know it wasn't plug and play. I know you had to put a lot of work into tuning it.
It was pretty much plug and play.
So there's nothing wrong. Yeah. We're just having bad experience just because the build volume's so gigantic and there's so many more things to go wrong with it.
I think you guys are having I think it's because they're these professional grade printers that are just so much more dialed in and exact, and they have custom code written for them.
Yeah, they're crazy.
I got, since I'm not exactly a beginner, I got a kind of a mid-level FDM printer. I got an Anycubic Viper, and it does bed leveling for you, and you just basically have to assemble a few pieces, put filament in, and it printed. Like first time, no trouble. I've only had one major failure at this point.
So yeah, I'm totally into getting one at some point. It just sort of depends on when you talk about a filament printer working great for terrain and pieces and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down. I'm just not sure when I'm ready to take that leap into terrain and big pieces. So resin printing has really been my whole game, even with where I worked at the dental lab. I love it. But there's a trade-off. You get that amazing quality almost at any price level, whether you buy one for $299 or you buy one for $999. Has a lot to do with the longevity of the screen, and whether it's 4K. It has a lot to do with the light source underneath. Is where you start ending up spending a lot of money. But it really, you still get a great print, but it's not that noticeable when you're working on something so small. So resin would be my go-to, I think, to jump in if you're going to try something. There's a lot of really great brands out there. The Saturns, the Elegoos are there's the community for working with any of the Elegoo printers is amazing. They have every level that you want to start spending money, starting at what, probably $199, I imagine. Somewhere in there.
I think it might be cheaper than that for the very first Elegoo now, which is what I have.
God, you can get in for nothing. Resin's not very expensive. If you buy a bottle of resin, what does it cost you? Maybe if you get it on sale, $27. And God, you could print.
Yeah, you can print dozens and
countless.
dozens of minis off of a single bottle of resin.
Right. So, well, now with that being said, there's a huge amount of work you've got to put into making a resin print, though. You have to get the software. There's a couple different ones. There's Lychee. It's a slicing program. What's the other one that we used to use? Cheeto Box.
Both of these have free options, by the way, to Jenna's point about a free software solution that'll help you out.
Right. But I'm telling you, it's hours and hours and hours of learning how to really tune in the software to make your print turn out right. So if you print a guy that's holding a giant sword, you don't just incorporate him into the program and hit print. I wish it was that simple, but every little piece of this mini that you're printing, if it has pieces that hang out, if I'm holding a giant sword and the sword's sticking out like this, I have to support that sword as it prints, or the print will, or it'll just rip off or not print or not hold up. So you end up with all of these tons and tons of scaffolding supports in all these different areas on your mini, and it takes a long time to learn how to do that and put the supports in the right places. And
Well,
a lot of the places that do the models though are pre-supporting them.
You can buy pre-supported models, and I highly suggest that because I've never really had any issue with that.
So I'm kind of confused here. So you're talking about, pre-supported models, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Benito, were you talking about if somebody designs their own and then they've got to go in and build supports under it?
Sure, right.
Okay. Versus Seth is talking about going somewhere, buying a model that somebody else has already designed with the supports built in.
Right. So let me see. I'm going to try to share this.
Okay.
We know how that's going, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show you what a print looks like when it's supported, so that you have an idea.
Okay.
All right. Let's see.
Are you loading up Lychee right now?
No.
So that software, that Lychee that you mentioned, that's something that somebody would need to get if they wanted to design their own models.
Yeah.
Right. No, if you want to design your
not
own
to design.
models, it's a completely different thing.
Right. Not to design. I'm sorry, to print. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to try to do this. So here is a dragon. These are all the supports I had to put in to support all the big pieces of this model, because it won't just print things that are hanging out into space.
Because what we're looking at now, right, when you're printing that, the printer is going to start at the very top with the tips of the wings.
Nope, it starts at the very bottom, the gray plate at the bottom.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's that, but then you end up with this if you did it correctly.
Oh.
So every one of these little spikes and all these little crystal pieces had to be supported, or they would either break off or not, or not work.
Huh.
So there's a lot of work to learning to resin print, as well as stop.
So that dragon, did you design that yourself, or did you purchase that from somewhere?
Right. So I bought the dragon, but it was not pre-supported. So I just had a file of a dragon. And then you have to pick which is the best way to start, and you can spin it around and
I see.
a lot to it. So then, but not only that, then after that, the post work is a ton of work.
Yeah, the post.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Seth.
The post work on resin is a lot more intensive than on FDM. Like, you've still got to sand an FDM, but in resin you have to, like, it comes out of that resin vat covered in this toxic resin, so you have to clean it off either in alcohol or some other solvent and get it dry so that it doesn't have any of that harmful resin on it, and then you have to post cure it as well.
Yeah, you have to cure it in a UV oven. And if you don't get all the resin, off and there's any resin goo anywhere and you send it through the oven, it bakes right on. You can lose a lot of detail if you don't clean it out really well.
I don't know.
I mean, there's so many steps, and then you got to.
So you buy the oven separate from the printer.
Or you can leave it out in the sunshine.
Yeah, you can pop it out in the sun.
UV.
But yeah, so resin, I'm a huge resin fan. And I have to say that because I don't own an FDM yet or seen one that actually works.
It just don't like working with poison.
Okay,
It
so
is working with poison.
yeah, so there.
But
I may
go
live
back.
with Bill's puns.
Yeah, right, right. Well, so it seems like there's a lot of knowledge that you guys have acquired over the year or two that you've been learning this stuff. So for somebody that's new to this, they've been listening to you guys talk. They're excited about doing this. Maybe they want to get take their first jump into this for Christmas. Is there a forum that they should go to where they can learn and read about a lot of this stuff and ask questions before jumping in to help them figure out what they really want to do?
It's the Seth forum. You go over and you spend time with Seth.
Yeah.
Now see this person here, this fantastic supports. I am so far from this level of getting a print with that few as supports. I have no confidence. I have no confidence in myself that if I did that would go, that's gonna print amazing. I'm not even worried about it. I'd put on like 300 more support because it's so heartbreaking when you have a failed print.
Yeah.
After
but,
12 hours or 8 hours of it printing, and then it falls apart.
You're going to have to expect some failed prints. But in answer to, I believe, Linda's question, where do you go? Where do you, or was this?
Oh,
Bill's?
sorry. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, mine. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I started off on YouTube. So there's a bunch of different creators who will help you get into things. So there's Modbot is a guy I've been watching, and I'll put some links in this week's show notes. Modbot has helped me a lot with my FDM stuff. And there's 3D printing nerd, 3D printing dungeon master, one of the two, who does specifically D&D stuff on 3D printers.
Uncle Jesse reviews about every printer on the
Uncle Jesse, he's a great source for just like how-tos and reviewing different printers and letting you know. There is one who I can't remember off the top of my head who really helped me with learning how to do supports.
Mm-hmm. I know who you're talking about. Amazing.
Yeah, he made getting into supporting things really easy. And now Benito made it sound like a huge hard process. But once you learn how to do it, it's not that intimidating.
Right. So
and you're going to list all the resources, right? Some recommended forums and sites on the links for this description.
He's right. I did make it sound like it's a lot of process, but I can do all that stuff I was complaining about. I can do in about 10 minutes, maybe 15.
Oh my God.
It's super quick, but it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the software really helps.
Yeah, and I think mainly, Benito, you were saying that just because of where you're at experience level, you tend to over support your models just to make sure it comes out right versus risking, a failed print. So
yeah, 100%.
Right.
Seth, you're 100% right. YouTube teaches you everything. There's nothing that you can't learn. YouTube has everything. If you're looking at a specific printer that maybe you're interested in, there's probably 5 or 6 reviews on it.
And a bunch of people who work with it professionally
who's already
worked
with it.
exactly
So
how to use it.
You won't have any trouble learning. I tried a little bit on Reddit and didn't get as far as I did on YouTube. YouTube was, YouTube's that way for everything. But as far as resin or FDM printing, there's no way you couldn't learn to do it.
Yeah, and
making it simple. They've taken all the hard part out and shown you the easiest, quickest way to do it.
Yeah, this episode is going to drop right before Black Friday, and there's going to be a bunch of printers on sale Black Friday.
Nice. All right.
If you see one you're interested in and want to get into it, first step, go to YouTube and just like search for that printer, and you'll probably get 10 hits of reviews right off the top.
Right. Or God, just type in how do resin printers work? How do FDM printers work?
I can't wait till we get to our 200th episode and Charles is 3D printing bridges for cars to drive on.
That he still won't use.
He still won't use. Oh God. All right.
They 3D print houses now. I mean, it's
I know. Yeah,
amazing.
we were looking at that online the other day. 3D printed homes in 24
boats,
hours.
cars, things that go into space. Like
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the future. Might as well get into it now. Get ready for it.
Right.
Yeah.
We're underutilizing resources, Seth. We're just printing minis.
Hey, it's keeping me busy, so I think Katie thinks it's fully worthwhile.
I keep you out of her hair. I
He's
love
like,
all
I'd pay money for that.
Yeah.
hair is a wreck. I'm sorry.
It makes me
Right.
thinking now maybe I could have 3D printed my veranda.
Part of it. Part of
That would have
it.
been a bit much.
Yeah, part of it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys coming on talking about 3D printing. And Stu, thank you for coming on. And
Yeah, I'm sorry if we made you gloss over it.
no.
It's
oh,
interesting
fascinating
to
to
us
me.
for sure.
Yeah, I
That was
love
Very
it.
interesting.
So,
Cat butt.
great way to hit
Yeah,
our 100th episode talking about 3D.
Yeah, and although
printing. Cool.
you are right though, I would almost pencil in Benito or somebody else who's interested in 3D printing for the 200th episode just to see how far we've come since.
I
Right.
think we're going to be
Right.
around for 200.
Oh,
just-
definitely.
We're going to be around for 100.
I hope so. I hope so.
Me too. All
I mean,
right.
unless that
How many-
solar flare takes us out and the grid is going to become
Right.
Mad Max world, but you know.
Right.
How many years have we been doing this now?
This
for,
is our
Bill?
4th year. We're going to be hitting 5 years here in January.
So
Oh, wow.
by episode 200, we'll be close to 10 years.
Well, no, because the first 3.5 years we were doing bi-weekly.
All right. So
Now we're doing-
we could hit
Now we're gluttons for
200
punishment.
in
Pretty fast, 1.5 years,
Years.
maybe. Yeah,
about 2 years.
yeah.
2 years.
There you go. Right.
52 weeks a year, yeah.
Here's
Right.
to 2 years.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. And all of you out there, if you want to find more of our shows, check us out on galacticdriftwood.space. You can also check out our partner podcasters on synergynation.net, which is synnation.net. And you'll find other podcasts out there like Go RPGs, which Benito runs.
I don't do a
along-
podcast. We do
What's
some
that?
live shows. We do live shows from time to time. Not much of a podcast, but
All right.
we on Facebook. If you just look up RPGs, we have some stuff going on there. And
He's got cool stuff.
Excellent.
Cool stuff.
Excellent.
And yeah, thank you to our guests this week, Stu Burns and Benito Garcia, for joining us.
Thanks for nerding out. We
Thanks for
always
letting
love
us
having you guys on.
All right. We will.
Sorry if we dominated talk with us nerding out about 3D printing.
No, that's
No, that
fine.
was great. I
Yeah,
loved it. It was fascinating. So
I think that's what people come here for, really.
Yeah.
Remember, Black Friday's coming.
Yes, buy one. No matter what I said that may have victim or not victim,
On,
but
may have
on,
scared you off.
3D printing. Buy
Yeah.
one.
on this, your blackest of Fridays.
All right, folks. Well, thanks again, and we will see you again next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.